The villagers believe she will be all right now. Dolan reflects on the oracle's prophecy, delivered by Muriel, and feels indebted to her. Later, as Dolan sleeps, he uses his astral form to separate his soul from his body, flying upwards until he reaches the land of the gods. There, he transforms into a dragon and visits Muriel, who is happy to see him. He greets her, saying it's been a long time since they last met. When he addresses her as a goddess, she teasingly wonders if he's forgotten how to speak like a human. He smiles and asks her not to tease him. She quickly catches on that he's visiting because of the Lamia, and he confirms this, explaining how invaluable her oracle had been. Without it, who knows what might have happened? He thanks her earnestly, and Muriel marvels at his rebirth as a human. She says she sensed his soul in the prayers offered to her, sparkling with the joy of life. It surprised her, considering how tired of living he once was. Dolan admits that he had no regrets when the hero delivered the final blow. But since being reborn, his perspective has shifted. He now understands that people on the surface live as if every day could be their last. Their lives, though fleeting, burn brightly. Muriel smiles, telling him that he's been shining too, and she's felt pure joy in his heart. She adds that the same is true for Delenia, and Dolan, deeply moved, thanks her again. The scene shifts to morning, where Selena bursts into Dolan's house, waking him up. He groggily tells her to knock next time. She apologizes, but notices how content he looks. Dolan explains that he had a dream where he met an old friend who spoke kind words to him. When he asks why she's there so early, Selena reminds him of their promise to plant potatoes with Christina. She playfully warns him that Christina would be sad if she thought he had forgotten. Outside, Christina overhears the conversation, smiling softly. Next, in the bustling city of Galoa, a young girl delivers a letter to the headmistress of the academy. The headmistress, Olivia, asks the girl to leave the mail in its usual spot, but the girl insists that today's mail is special. It's from Christina, the pride of the academy. Olivia uses magic to open the letter, where Christina shares how she's adjusting to life in Vin Village. The village faces harsh conditions, but the people have welcomed her warmly. As Olivia reads, the scene transitions to Christina sparring with Melita, the vice captain of the guards, in front of an excited crowd. Despite holding back, Melita eventually decides to take the match seriously, which excites Christina. They fight fiercely, and Christina emerges victorious, helping Melita up with a smile. Melita blushes as Christina compliments her swordsmanship, calling it swift and beautiful. Balan, impressed by their skill, invites Christina to lunch, which she gladly accepts. At the village tavern, the locals offer Christina various dishes, eager to see what she likes. Christina beams, saying she loves everything they've made. Her genuine warmth makes the village girls blush. When Balan invites her for a drink, Albert warns her to decline, knowing Balan's reputation as a heavy drinker. Christina laughs it off, but the conversation turns to teasing as Balan's friends try to stop him from dragging her into one of his infamous drinking contests. That evening, at the village guest house, Christina feels a bit out of place. Watching the villagers interact, she senses a distance between them and her. Later, while practicing her swordsmanship, Selena and Dolan stumble upon her. Noticing her somber mood, Selena invites her over to her house. There, she shows off her cozy bed, claiming it gives her the sweetest dreams. Christina hesitates, but eventually joins her in bed. Dolan, standing nearby, tries to excuse himself, but both girls playfully drag him in. They share a warm, light-hearted moment before the scene shifts again. The next day, the peaceful village is interrupted by the arrival of an envoy from the kingdom. Soldiers surround Selena and Dolan, while Christina is separated from them. The old man leading the group, Gouda, introduces himself as the commissioner of the northern frontier. He accuses Dolan of bringing Lamia Selena into the village. Dolan confirms this but explains that the oracle from the goddess Muriel has already declared Selena harmless. Gouda, however, insists that Selena must still be brought to the government for verification. Dolan, worried for Selena's safety, requests to accompany her. Gouda agrees, and they set off, leaving Christina behind. who decides to seek help from the headmistress. Using wind magic to speed her journey, Christina heads to Galoa. Meanwhile, on the road, Dolan and Selina share a quiet moment in the carriage. Sensing her anxiety, Dolan comforts her, hugging her gently and assuring her that everything will be all right. His embrace reminds him of how his mother used to calm him, and Selina, touched, feels a sense of hope. Later, Christina arrives at Olivia's office, urgently explaining the situation. Olivia reassures her that Selina will not be killed, but reveals that it was Karen, the government's mage general, who insisted on bringing Selina in. Karen suspects Selina might be involved in the recent disappearances of women, casting suspicion on her despite her innocence. As the night unfolds, the carriage carrying Selina and Dolan comes to a stop. The tension rises as Gouda summons Selina for questioning, and Christina braces herself for what's to come. As Dolan and Selina share a quiet moment in the shadowy depths of the forest, they come across a curious character, a small mushroom-like creature, quietly shuffling along. This walking mushroom has an ancient air about him, and he speaks in a hushed, gravelly tone that hints at secrets untold. Dolan and Selina listen intently, but as the mushroom reveals his knowledge, their faces twist in disbelief and horror. The news shakes them deeply, unsettling their core beliefs. The ancient magic, the forbidden rites, all the horrors they'd only heard in whispers were true, woven into the fabric of their very mission. In the city of Galois, the scene shifts to Krisa, a sharp-witted scholar who stares anxiously at her notes, absent-mindedly adjusting her glasses. She's incensed to learn of Selina's capture and the eerie involvement of Kieran, the city's reputedly benevolent witch. Krisa's frustration builds, restrained only by the dean, who insists they must bide their time to prevent any legal backlashes. Yet Olivia, another of their trusted allies, remains concerned, sensing there's something deeper at play. Meanwhile, Dolan and Selina are brought before Kieran, who greets them with her usual charm. As they settle down to a lavish dinner, Selina's anxieties are calmed slightly by the witch's unexpected hospitality. But Dolan, wary of the overture, insists on answers. Kieran surprises them with the news that she will handle all necessary paperwork for Selina's stay in the village, but her pleasant smile hides something sinister. Beneath the cheery banquet lies an air of foreboding, one that the heroes cannot shake as they drink the offered wine. Kieran's gaze lingers on Selina with unsettling intensity, admiring her unique beauty and shimmering scales. As the night darkens, Dolan's vision blurs, and a wave of drowsiness overtakes him. He realizes, too late, that Kieran has drugged them. Selina struggles as well, fighting to stay conscious. The witch's smile transforms into a smirk as she reveals her true intentions to harness Selina's vitality to fuel her own twisted quest for eternal beauty. Powerless, they drift into darkness. Back at the library, Krisa pores over her books in despair, when suddenly, the governor strides in with a grim look. He's prepared to break his silence, revealing shocking news about Kieran's dark experiments. For years, young women have disappeared in Galois without a trace, their lives twisted into dark purposes by Kieran. The governor reveals that Kieran's forbidden magic relies on consuming the life force of others, a truth that chills Krisa to the bone. In the depths of Kieran's hidden dungeon, Selina awakens, bound to a cold slab. Kieran leans over her, scalpel in hand, relishing the moment. Her face twists with glee as she prepares to extract the Lamia's vitality. But Dolan, forcing himself awake through sheer will, breaks free of his bonds with newfound strength. With fury burning in his eyes, he confronts Kieran, who merely laughs. The floor around her is marked with bloodied runes, a macabre testament to her countless dark rituals. Kieran's expression changes as she realizes Dolan's powers, sensing he may be more than he appears. In a voice dripping with scorn, she describes how she spent centuries piecing together her perfect form, taking the beauty and vitality of her countless victims. Her patchwork body is a horror, her face untouched by age thanks to the sacrifices of others. But Dolan, disgusted, challenges her, condemning her as an abomination. Selina, finding her strength, joins him, her eyes alight with determination. Just then, the doors burst open, and the governor, alongside a squad of guards, storm in, revealing that they've been on to Kieran all along. This was no simple dinner party, but a sting operation meant to expose her wickedness. Furious, Kieran transforms, merging her form with the twisted magic sustaining her. She lunges at Selina, but Dolan steps forward, summoning his full power. His hand crackles with energy, a celestial javelin manifesting in his grip as he hurls it at Kieran, piercing her with the force of divine retribution. As the witch crumbles to ash, Dolan and Selina finally breathe a sigh of relief. Their victory is bittersweet, the reality of Kieran's victims weighing heavily on them. The governor hands them official documents, granting Selina the freedom to stay in the city. For the first time, she feels accepted, her heart swelling with gratitude. As they walk through the city, Dolan contemplates the offer to join the magical academy, where he could further hone his powers. But as he gazes at Selina, he realizes that his heart lies with her, and the quiet village life they both crave. In the shadows of a distant forest, however, new dangers stir. Monstrous ants march in formation, and a figure stands at the edge of a dark portal, observing the scene with a sinister smile. A new chapter awaits, one that will test Dolan and Selina's courage once again. In the shadowy depths of a dense forest, an elven scout treads carefully, his senses sharp. But then, he freezes. A strange sight unfolds before him. A colossal army of beasts begins to materialize through a shimmering portal, monstrous forms stepping forth with malicious intent. Fear creeps into his heart, his thoughts racing. What is happening, he wonders, glancing back to the safety of his people. He takes a step back, only for the creatures to lunge, brutally attacking him. Moments later, another elf, concerned and confused, stumbles upon his friend's broken body, eyes wide with horror as he stares at the lifeless form. What are these things, he whispers, barely processing his loss before the monsters descend upon him too. In a nearby part of the forest, two more elves arrive, their faces stricken as they gaze upon the bodies of their fallen kin scattered across the forest floor. Amid the horror, they find one elf barely clinging to life. They kneel by him, desperate to understand. What happened here, they ask softly. With a trembling breath, he mutters, It was a horde. Monsters, his last words hang in the air as he slips away, leaving them with a chilling realization. We have to inform the leader, one of them says, eyes filled with determination. The scene shifts, revealing Christina and Dolan teaching swordsmanship to some young villagers. Selina watches Dolan closely, lost in thought, recalling how the headmistress once invited him to join the academy. A pang of worry strikes her. Would he leave one day, leaving her behind? Suddenly, her musings are interrupted by the giggles of children tugging on her tail. She huffs in mock anger, chasing after them as they scatter with laughter. Dolan watches her, a smile playing on his face, hopeful that Selina is finding her place in the village. Christina approaches Dolan, expressing a desire to venture into the forest. When Dolan asks why, she hesitates before explaining villagers have reported strange creatures lurking about, and she believes it's essential to check for threats. She mentions that Albert hasn't taken his pigs grazing lately, and Dolan, understanding her intent, reluctantly agrees. Later, in the heart of the forest, Dolan, Christina, Balin, Selina, and several soldiers accompany the pigs as they graze. Selina notices the soldiers' heavy armor, prompting Dolan to explain that they're being cautious. There's been word of unusual creatures in the area. Just then, a pig wanders off, and a soldier chases after it. The soldier soon finds the pig, but its body is slashed with claw marks, lifeless and tossed aside. A beast, a fierce, bladed tiger, emerges, its eyes gleaming with a predatory gaze. The soldier trembles, but Balin charges forward, striking the beast. Just as the soldier sighs in relief, another monster ambushes Balin, sending him crashing to the ground. Dolan and the others rush over, finding Balin bloodied but alive. In a swift, focused move, Dolan casts an energy bolt, hitting the monster hard. Yet, it barely falters. Christina, wide-eyed, asks Dolan what kind of creature it is. "It's not just a monster, it's a demon." A low-ranking scout called an Erti replies, voice grim. Christina eyes him, curious about how he knows this. Dolan admits he's read about them in a book, though he doesn't reveal more. He pins the demon down with another energy bolt, giving Christina the opportunity to finish it off. She does, slashing it down before Dolan instructs her, "Don't speak of this to the villagers just yet." Back in the village that evening, villagers gather, waiting with bated breath for news on Balan's condition. The chief assures them he's out of danger, under the care of the healers Muru and Muyu. Relief floods the crowd, but whispers ripple through an unknown demon and a bladed tiger. Christina, worried, asks the chief if creatures like these appear often. He solemnly replies that he's never encountered such beasts before, noting that if even Balan, their strongest soldier, was injured, something dire may be afoot. Dolan, sensing a greater danger, offers to investigate further, though Muru reminds him that the forest's mysteries are sometimes best left undisturbed. The next morning, Dolan and Selena set out for the forest, Selena determined to prove herself. As they approach the dark, twisted trees, they're startled by a familiar figure, Christina, ready to join them. She insists she can't just stay back, feeling tied to this place and the people. Dolan, touched by her resolve, agrees to let her come along. Together they press deeper into the woods, fending off lurking creatures. At one point, a hulking, gorilla-like beast looms before Christina, its eyes menacing. But Selena, calmly pulling out a piece of fruit, offers it to the monster, pacifying it. Christina marvels at the docility of this creature and watches as Dolan, surrounded by baby creatures, tries to figure out why they're so taken with him. They share a small, quiet breakfast with the creatures, Christina chuckling as she finds herself petting one that approaches for a bite. Just as the forest seems to accept them, a glimmer of movement draws their attention. A tiny fairy trapped in a glowing sphere tumbles down beside them, calling out weakly, "Run ... away," before they can react. More demon scouts appear, surrounding them. Dolan and Christina immediately stand guard, with Selena ushering the other creatures to safety. Together they battle the demons, each strike more ferocious than the last. As the dust settles, the fairy, still trembling, introduces herself as Merle, explaining that the demons are disrupting the natural order, driving creatures from their habitats and spreading terror through the forest. Dolan, concerned, asks Merle what she knows about these demons. But before she can answer, the trees around them shift, revealing a group of wood elves with wary eyes. One of their leaders steps forward, gesturing for Merle to step away from the humans. The standoff is tense, but Dolan, showing his respect, gently lowers his weapon, hoping to show the elves they mean no harm. In the thick, green shadows of the forest, an aura of tension lingers as Dolan, Selena, and Christina enter the elven forest, the air dense with the ancient magic of the woodland. Suddenly, from between the trees, a group of wood elves emerges, eyes sharp as daggers, their weapons glinting under the filtered sunlight. At the lead of the elven group is Geo, their commander, his gaze cool and unyielding as it lands on Merle, an elf who stands alongside the humans. With a voice that echoes like the whisper of leaves, Geo addresses Merle, urging her to step away from the humans and join her kin. But Merle, with defiance and gratitude shining in her eyes, explains that these humans have saved her life. Geo listens, but remains wary, though a glimmer of understanding softens his stance. Selena, with a calm yet cautious tone, whispers to Dolan that they have indeed entered the fabled elven forest. Dolan, ever the diplomat, reassures her, saying they mean no harm and are merely seeking answers. Still, he instinctively positions himself protectively in front of his companions as Geo approaches. For a moment, silence hangs between them, a standoff between two groups divided by centuries of mistrust, yet momentarily united by a single act of kindness. Geo, breaking the tension, thanks Dolan and the others for aiding Merle, though his voice remains formal. "This forest of Ent is sacred to us," he declares solemnly, "and I must ask why you have ventured here." Dolan, with a respectful bow, explains their purpose. He reveals that creatures of the shadows, vile, twisted beings, have begun to appear around their village, threatening the peace. Driven by duty, they came to investigate, though he now realizes they may have trespassed without permission. His sincerity reaches Geo, who sighs, acknowledging that Dolan's concerns are valid. But the forest is a perilous place at present, Gio warns, an ominous hint in his eyes as he mentions a dark, relentless force that has taken root. Dolan's heart sinks as he realizes Gio speaks of the demon troops, a threat that has grown like a poison through both their lands. They have come to our village as well, Dolan admits, the weight of his words heavy with dread. Just then, Christina, her voice filled with a mix of worry and resolve, steps forward. How can you fight this force alone? Have you enough soldiers? Have you warned the kingdom? She grabs Gio's arm, imploring him, her eyes pleading for answers. Dolan and Selena try to calm her, sensing her fear, but Christina cannot be soothed. If your village is in danger, she insists, we are willing to help you. Moved by her passion, the elves around them slowly lower their weapons, their suspicion giving way to a tentative trust. Fu, Gio's sister, murmurs to her brother, these humans, they may be different from others, they seem kind. Merle nods, adding, they fought off demon soldiers with ease. Dolan senses an opening. He knows time is of the essence and begins to speak of a plan, though he understands it may challenge the elves' deeply held traditions. This is a danger that your forces alone may not withstand, he says earnestly. The laws of your people may be sacred, but would you consider breaking them, just this once, to save all that you hold dear? Gio hesitates, torn between loyalty to his people's customs and the grim reality of their situation. Fu steps in, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Brother, sometimes rules must be bent if we are to live to see another day. Her words, along with the encouraging murmurs of the other elves, sway Gio, and he agrees. I cannot promise you safety, he warns, but if you are willing to face this peril, we shall accept your aid. As Gio and Dolan reach to seal their accord, a chill sweeps through the trees, the very air rippling with a dark energy. Dolan's eyes widen. The portal has opened, he whispers, the foreboding realization chilling him to the bone. 3 towering figures, demons from the shadowy depths, step through the rift, their twisted forms barely concealed by the mists of the demon realm. Among them, a sinister girl named Reincarnated breathes in the earthly air with satisfaction, murmuring that the surface world isn't so bad. She smirks, proclaiming their intent to clear the way for their dark master. Elsewhere in the forest, Gio receives a warning from the spirits. A threat approaches from the north. These are no ordinary demons, he realizes, recalling Dolan's warnings. In a hurried yet measured voice, he suggests they approach the village from the southwest, hoping to intercept the fiends. As they press onward, the landscape itself seems to shift, as if the forest itself anticipates the coming struggle. Back near the portal, Reincarnated and her demonic comrades prepare their twisted game, a contest to see who will find the elven village first and wreak havoc upon it. With a gleeful laugh, one of the demons, Gyud, charges ahead, his excitement nearly palpable. In the village, the elves, alerted to the threat, brace themselves as wave after wave of Zert demons descend upon them, dark and merciless. Arrows fly through the air, striking down demons in a desperate effort to protect their homes. But the forces seem endless, and then, looming behind the Zert, is Gyud himself. His eyes gleam with cruel delight as he announces himself as the first of the demonic knights, his attack signaling the beginning of a war. With a single blow, he shatters the village's defensive wall, the sound reverberating through the forest like a death knell. Back in the forest, Dolan and his allies push forward, Gio casting aside trees to carve a path, their minds set on reaching the village in time. But more Zert demons block their way, and the group springs into action. Dolan calls forth a rain of magical energy, Selena freezes some of the demons in their tracks, and Christina's sword cuts through them with unmatched precision. Side by side, they demonstrate their strength, drawing the admiration of the elves who witness their resolve. Meanwhile, in the heart of the village, the battle grows more desperate. Jadora, a powerful spirit connected to the forest itself, intervenes, vines erupting from the ground to ensnare Gyud. But he merely laughs, brushing off the vines with disdain. Unfazed, Jadora's roses bloom, drawing power from his very mana. Enraged by her defiance, Gyud presses his attack, but Jadora stands firm, her determination only hardening as she watches her fellow spirits suffer at the hands of these invaders. Then Reincarnated joins the fray, her dark aura suffusing the air with a malevolent energy. Taunting Jadora, she explains how she enjoyed tormenting the flower spirits on her way here, their cries for help nothing more than a twisted symphony to her ears. Jidora's resolve is steel, and with a cry of fury, she summons her powers, vines wrapping around Ryuusei in a final attempt to defend her forest. But the demon merely laughs, her spirit nourished by blood, not sunlight, and her vines quickly wither. Jidora barely manages to scar her foe's face before being overpowered, but her resistance only serves to fuel Ryuusei's rage. At that exact moment, Dolan arrives, unleashing a burst of energy at the demons. Enough, he cries, stepping forward, his face set with grim determination. The sight of his allies gives Jidora the strength to stand once more, her eyes blazing with defiance. Together, they ready themselves for the battle to come, a battle that will determine the fate of the forest, the village, and the very balance of the world itself.
The forest quaked under the relentless waves of power that rippled through it, an ominous prelude to the battle unfolding in the heart of the elven village. The clash of energies was palpable, an invisible force pressing down on everyone present. Jinsei and Ryuusei, two seasoned warriors of the invading force, stood frozen for a moment, their piercing gazes locked into the fray. Dolan, his presence, though calm and composed, exuded an unyielding strength that defied the chaos surrounding him. Without hesitation, he extended a hand to help the fallen Jidora to her feet. Her hand trembled as it reached for his, the weight of her injuries evident in her movements. Before their hands could meet, Jinsei launched a ferocious attack, his blade slicing through the air with lethal intent. But just as the strike was about to land, a brilliant flash of steel intercepted it. Christina had arrived in the nick of time, her blade deflecting Jinsei's with precision and a flare of determination in her eyes. Her sudden appearance was like a beacon, her presence reinvigorating the spirits of those fighting against overwhelming odds. Dolan, seizing the moment Christina had created, counterattacked with a fluid strike of his own. His blade narrowly missed Jinsei's vitals, grazing him enough to leave a shallow scar. The demon snarled, his pride stung more than his flesh, as Dolan stepped back to reassess the battlefield. Yet the danger was far from over. Unnoticed, Rhea had moved behind him, her movements swift and silent as she prepared to deliver a crushing blow. Before Rhea could strike, an arrow streaked through the air, aimed directly at her. The projectile gleamed briefly in the sunlight before she caught it mid-flight with an almost contemptuous ease. Despite catching the arrow, its force still managed to hurl her backward, the impact sending shock waves through her body. Rage ignited in her eyes, her voice a growl as she spat out her fury. Dolan, unshaken, smirked at her reaction, his words cutting through her anger like a blade. "Did you think you'd get a warm welcome walking into an elven village with that attitude?" he asked, his voice calm yet sharp, like the edge of a well-honed sword. Around them, the elven archers prepared to fire again, their bows creaking as they drew the strings taut. The tension was electric, the silence preceding the release almost deafening. But before the arrows could fly, the ground beneath them trembled violently, an earthquake ripping through the forest. Trees swayed and cracked, their roots straining against the shifting earth. The air grew heavier as all eyes turned toward the portal that had brought the demons into their midst. The portal pulsed ominously, its swirling energy growing more chaotic by the second. The dark hues within it writhed like living shadows, and a chilling sensation spread across the battlefield. Rya's lips curled into a malevolent grin as she whispered almost to herself, "George is finally here." From the depths of the portal, a figure began to emerge. Its silhouette was monstrous, its disfigured form a testament to the dark forces that birthed it. The being's presence was suffocating, its aura spreading like a toxic miasma that threatened to choke the life out of the forest itself. Yet Jinsei, far from intimidated, seemed annoyed. His pride as a warrior refused to allow anyone, even George, to overshadow him. His expression twisted with determination as he stepped forward, his voice cutting through the growing dread. "I won't let him steal my glory. I'll kill everyone here before he even gets the chance." With those words, Jinsei unleashed his aura, a dark and oppressive force that spread outward in a show of dominance. The ground beneath his feet cracked and splintered, and the weaker elves recoiled, their knees buckling under the sheer weight of his power. But just as the oppressive atmosphere seemed unbearable, a new energy surged through the battlefield. It was fierce and unrelenting, cutting through Jinsei's aura like a blade through cloth. All eyes turned toward the source, and there stood Sayounara. Her expression hardened with righteous anger. Her presence was like a storm, her energy swirling around her in a tangible wave of defiance. Sayounara's voice rang out, her chant resonating with the very elements of the forest. The ground beneath her feet glowed with magical runes as she summoned forth her spell. From the light emerged a seven-headed serpent, its massive form coiled with primal energy. The creature's eyes glowed with a menacing light, its scales shimmering like molten metal as it loomed over the battlefield. Rhea, ever the opportunist, attempted to absorb the serpent's power, her own abilities greedily reaching out to siphon the energy. But Dolan, anticipating her move, was ready. With a swift incantation, he unleashed an explosion spell, the blast tearing through the battlefield and disrupting her attempt. Ghidorah followed up with her vines, which wrapped around Rhea with a vice-like grip, holding her in place. "Oh, your place, demonic weed!" Ghidorah spat, her voice filled with venomous triumph. As the battle continued, Sayounara directed her serpent toward Jinsei, its massive form coiling around him in a show of overwhelming power. The demon struggled against its crushing grip, his movements growing more frantic as the serpent tightened its hold. Meanwhile, Dolan's attention shifted to a hidden presence he'd sensed earlier. Forging a molten spear with his magic, he hurled it with unerring accuracy toward the source of his unease. From the shadows stepped Jiren, unharmed and smirking. "Impressive," he remarked, his tone dripping with condescension. "But is that all you've got?" Jiren's taunt marked the beginning of another intense confrontation, but the most daunting threat still loomed ahead: the enigmatic and terrifying George. His arrival had turned the tide of the battle into an ominous prelude to something far greater than any of them had anticipated. As George finally stepped through the portal, his towering presence seemed to distort the air around him. The once chaotic battlefield fell silent, as if the forest itself held its breath. His aura was unlike anything the elves or even Dolan had ever faced. It was suffocating, a tangible force that pressed down on them like the weight of 1,000 storms. His piercing eyes scanned the battlefield, taking in the chaos wrought by his subordinates with an expression of mild amusement. Jinsei and Rhea stepped aside, their usual arrogance tempered by the sheer dominance radiating from their leader. Even Jiren, who had displayed nothing but contempt for everyone moments earlier, bowed his head slightly in acknowledgement. George's calm voice broke the silence, each word deliberate and filled with menace. "I see you've been entertaining yourselves," he said, his tone almost conversational. His gaze shifted to Dolan, lingering for a moment. "And you're different." Dolan met George's gaze without flinching, his draconic energy swirling around him like an unseen shield. "I've heard enough from your lackeys," Dolan replied, his voice steady. "If you've come to finish what they started, you'll have to go through me." George's lips curled into a faint smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. Bold words. Let's see if you can back them up. What followed was a clash of titans. Dolan and George's battle unfolded in a blur of light and shadow, each strike shaking the very ground beneath them. Dolan's draconic wings unfurled with a mighty gust, deflecting one of George's devastating blows. The elf warriors and demons alike could only watch, awestruck as the two warriors exchanged attacks with an intensity that left craters in their wake. George, seemingly unbothered by the destruction, summoned his 3 demonic light blades, each one crackling with dark energy. The blades hovered ominously before flying toward Dolan with lethal precision. Dolan, unfazed, raised his hand and summoned a shield of molten rock and fire. The blades struck the shield with explosive force, sending shockwaves through the forest. Selena, who had been holding her ground against the other demons, felt her heart leap into her throat. Despite her own power, she had never seen such raw strength from either side. "Dolan!" she cried out, her voice filled with both fear and desperation. To her astonishment, Dolan emerged from the smoke of the explosion, unscathed, a determined smile on his face. His aura flared brighter, the golden hues of his energy clashing against the dark red of George's. "I'll admit," George said, his voice tinged with genuine respect, "it's been a long time since someone pushed me this far." But the battle had taken its toll on everyone. The elves were battered, their village scarred, and their hope wavering. Sensing this, George decided to deliver his ultimatum. With a wave of his hand, the demons pulled back, their retreat as sudden as their arrival. "You have 3 days," George declared, his voice carrying an edge of finality. "Join us, or be erased from this world." His words hung in the air like a death sentence as he and his subordinates disappeared into the shadows, leaving the battlefield in an eerie silence. As the tension faded, Selena rushed to Dolan, throwing her arms around him. "Don't you dare scare me like that again," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief. Dolan's smile was gentle as he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I'll always come back," he promised. Christina approached, her expression a mix of exhaustion and resolve. "We've bought ourselves some time, but we need to figure out our next move." The elves, still wary of Dolan and his companions, hesitated before escorting them to their elders. The tension in the village was palpable, but there was also a flicker of hope. In the elders' chamber, the leader, Dio, acknowledged their efforts with a cautious nod. "You've earned our gratitude," he said, though his tone betrayed his lingering distrust. The meeting took a surprising turn when a familiar figure stepped into the room, Olivia, an elf who had chosen to live among humans. Her warm smile cut through the heavy atmosphere, bringing a sense of calm to everyone present. "It seems I arrived just in time," she said, her voice carrying a gentle strength. As the group prepared for the days ahead, Dolan's resolve only grew stronger. He knew the battle with George was far from over, and the fate of the elven village, and perhaps the world, rested on their shoulders.